Hello and welcome to the TechGeek virtual panel discussion. I am Sukriti and I'm here with a stellar panel to talk about the importance of data-driven analytics for tech recruitment and evaluation. Hiring and talent acquisition are the cornerstones of business growth. And when you need to scale your business, you look at the recruiting teams to bring in the talent needed for the success. Hiring at a scale is not an easy task, and doing it well without having an analytical and data-driven recruitment approach is even harder. Why is data important in tech recruiting? We're going to break down this ideologically here in today's discussion, and we'll check out the channels, things which are working for the recruiters in the market, right? And to do this, I have with me Aakanksha Lath, who is the director HR MakeMyTrip. Mino Thomas, Senior Director and Head of Talent Acquisition and Staffing, Adobe, and Subnesh Sharma, Senior Director, HR, VVDN Technologies. Welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. I would request all three of you to please go ahead, introduce yourself, and give me the opening remark for the session. Aakanksha, let's begin with you.
Thank you, Sukriti. Thank you for having all of us here. So quick introductions. So I am Aakanksha Lath. I lead the talent acquisition and for technology and design at MakeMyTrip and Goibibo. While I began my career in TA maybe about 15 years ago, I think I've done it very sparingly over the last decade or so. And in its current avatar, how hiring looks, I'm an absolute rookie. So happy to be here and learn from all the tech and the TA gurus of the industry. For sure. And I must congratulate TechGeek on picking up this topic for discussion. Super relevant, I think, in these times, especially. And coming to data for hiring, So I think it can be bucketed, I would say largely that's how we look at it in two areas, in terms of candidate metrics and process metrics. And I think while the first helps us in candidate profiling, increasing probability of selection, and etc., the latter is more about process efficiency, removing leakage and all of that. Again, MakeMyTrip is a product-based company, the internet industry, and we are absolutely fastidious about how, how many customers, how many candidates do we have at the top of the funnel, then what is the stage of conversion, how is each person progressing through it? And at the end, what is it that we're getting as output? Are customers buying our product? Are candidates joining us, accepting the role and, offering that we have for them? This is what we measure on an everyday basis, and I think this is what it's all about in TA for us. A few metrics just to call out, maybe the source distribution, the interview to offer conversion, offer to joining ratios. So all these metrics not only help us in RCA, in root cause analysis, but also help us in creating some prescriptive analytics, and it is it that we can draw from here and put to work. So a combination of these lead-lag indicators are what it's all about for us in hiring. So I think with that, I would hand it over to Subnesh and Mino to take it forward.
Thank you so much, Aakanksha. Subnesh, please go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much for this lovely introduction, Aakanksha. Good to hear that. This is Subnesh Sharma. I'm having 16 plus years of experience into HR in different gamuts of HR services, talent acquisition, talent development, and so on and so forth. And there are different benefits which we are going to discuss today, right? From this discussion, I believe there's going to be a on-spot discussion wherein everybody will learn out of it for sure, right? We are talking about candidate, we are talking about talent, we are talking about acquisition, we are talking about whatever it takes today, right? And primary thing for any of the organization is the candidate, how the candidate selection can be ensured. So we are going to touch base on all the pointers from data, from analytics, from candidate, from recruitment, and overall strategy point of view. So we'll see how this discussion goes ahead. Over to you, Mino.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mino. It's a very non-use name. Mino in Persian means paradise, and in a dialect of Spanish it means my son. My brother's name is M-I-J-O, which means M-I-J-O Miho, which means my dear son. I'm still trying to figure out why is he the dear son and I'm not. A little bit about me. I've been working for around 19 years. That makes me really old. I started off as a business person. My job was around consulting. I was in consulting space, a travel-ready job. I would come in the morning, and then I would get to know where am I going to go and who am I going to meet. What that really helped me was in terms of just understanding customers, right? Understanding business, what ticks and what does not tick. From there, I moved into consulting for HR. I was consulting a large manufacturing company, and that's how I realized what HR is and started to appreciate it. Moved on to becoming an HR VP, then moved back into consulting, then moved into talent acquisition, roamed the world. Sharing this yesterday, I've had the privilege of working for every continent and every region across the world. So it's been just enriching in terms of just knowing the nuances of different culture. I'm a techie by heart. I always wanted to be a space scientist, and then landed up being a business consultant who is right now a TA person. So you can see how my trajectory just kind of plummeted or rised. I love tech. I love data, and I'm here to really kind of share and learn, right? And I think one thing that I would really say in the opening remark is business is got a high appetite for data, right? At the same time, functions like HR is not able to really provide for data that satiates the business appetite, right? And there's a lot of distance for us to really traverse in terms of ensuring that we're able to give business that amount of data, right? And as we start to talk here, I would really love if we could really start to talk about what are those data points that we really can provide for business and help business make informed decisions that help business tick, right? Ultimately, our job's not to recruit, our job's to create impact on business, right? And how do you really create that impact on businesses is what I think we should all storytell with data, right? Back to you. So I hope that really helps.
Thank you so much, Mino. Thanks, Aakanksha, and thanks, Subnesh. Mino, to which, we should just start over with the data and the requirements. We're going to begin with that very question. But before I actually, begin asking the questions, audience, we'll be taking up a few questions in the end once our discussion is done. So if you have any relevant question that you would want to ask our experts today, please feel free to drop them down here in the chat window, and we'll take them up after the panel discussion. Okay. So let's go ahead and talk about the most interesting part that we should start with. Data-driven decision making is vital because it involves the collection of an enormous amount of data, extracting facts and patterns from it, and leveraging those facts to make better decisions for driving the business forward. And as you've set up the context right for all of us, that it's the primary necessity for any business to move forward. How are data and analytics being used for recruitment in today's time? So let's begin with you, Subnesh.
Sure. So typically from organization point of view, it is important that we should have right set of people at the right place. Now, this is the phrase which is being quoted everywhere, even from the boardroom to the managerial discussion to each and every level, right, in the hierarchy, it is being talked about. Now, when it comes to hiring, we try to apply all sort of magic, right? We think that recruiter is a juggler, right? He's a magician. Your demand today is going to bring tomorrow. That's not the reality. That's not the reality. But this person has to put in thousands of efforts, right? There are a number of sources, number of portals, number of social media platforms wherein this person has to pay attention, extract the data, try to find out what skill set is matching or not matching. He has to do good amount of work, and that's where this data crunching mechanism is needed. Sitting today, if you are talking about AI, right, this is heavily supporting this all activities, what is being expected out of a small human being which is responsible to hire thousands of people for that organization, right? From that perspective, if data analytics are enabled in a tool which will allow you to find out and give you some artistic view or some scientific view which says, okay, this is the area where you can pay attention, or this is the demographics which you need to pay attention, or for that matter, this is the skill set which you need to pay attention. This is the skill set what is expected. This is the skill set which is available, right? So such kind of platforms are really important, wherein you will start realizing as a recruiter what all different things I can do with the help of the data if it is in front of my eyes, right? And that's where you start paying attention not to do everything on Excel or so-called Word or so-called text sheet. You will start paying attention to the resolution which are solution which are coming from Power BI. Maybe trying to optimize your hiring, you are trying to optimize your cost, you are trying to pay attention to lead indicator, what I think Aakanksha has mentioned correctly, right? These are the areas wherein such such information is going to be collated and you start producing results. And as a recruiter, right, if I talk about myself as a recruiter, right, so where I would like to pay attention, I would like to pay attention to the area which can bring with minimal effort with the maximum impact. So what Mino was saying is absolutely makes sense. The discussion, whatever is happening, absolutely okay, but the moment you talk about a resource, you talk about a candidate, it's all about the impact you are bringing to the business, right? So we need to think about that, what benefits we are bringing with the use of data and analytics. There are thousands of tools which are available, right, which we can definitely leverage. Even in my organization, we are using certain tools which are open source in nature, and we have in-house tool which we have developed. But ultimately, where we are paying attention to optimize, to increase the efficacy of the recruiter, to optimize the cost, to ensure that the focused hiring is being done. That's how we are doing it. Maybe I would request Mino and Aakanksha also to add on something if I missed.
Aakanksha, you want to go?
Would like to start? Mino, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So I think while I covered a bit of it with my opening remarks, I would say the summary for us is the hiring funnel and the entire funnel, like we talk about in e-commerce. So what are we getting at the top, and how are we able to get sufficient people at the source, and then are we able to work on each stage individually and see whether we're having those conversions, which will eventually result in the necessary output. So I think, and that approach, given the industry that we're in, works well for us, because we can communicate in the same language with our stakeholders, with the business out there, and they realize, so it helps us in greater synchronicity there. And yeah, at the end of it, I think it is about while they may be very old metrics to track, but I think it is about speed and TAT and quality. I mean, all of those traditional pieces I don't think go anywhere. It's just addition of a lot new metrics that come in and make the job a whole lot more complex. So like Subnesh said, one little being out there in the chaos, trying to make sense of the madness going around. That's what it is. Yeah. Mino, over to you.
Just a little bit about data and how data really helps. So, when we look at sales hiring in India, especially when it comes to enterprise sales, we found that the percentage of women in sales at an India level in the external market is 11%. So if you were to kind of sample 100 people, 89 of them are men and 11 of them are women, right? Now, you provide this data to business says, okay, but I want all the 11, right? That's exactly what I want, because we are driving diversity and we want the numbers to go high. Now, you and I as recruiters or as leaders would know that there is a certain amount of bias that exists in the organization, because of which a woman is not able to come into the enterprise. But you could go to business and say, you know what, hey, I think there's a lot of bias and you guys aren't doing your job right. And because of which you're not able to bring in women. Will that narrative hold, right? The answer is no. So what we did was, we said, let's look at what's available in the market. For example, I don't know if you know about the Big Five competency, but there's something called the Big Five, which actually looks at certain elements in every person, right? From consensuousness to ability to think, to persuade. What we did was, we correlated the Big Five personality traits to a sales index score. So for anybody that we interview, we have a sales index score for sales. right? Ultimately, what we did was we looked at, was there a correlation between the sales index score and the people coming in? And what we found was, for a non-diversity to get through the company, the sales index score on average was 74. But for a diversity to get into the company, the sales index score was 82. Which means there is an 8-point bias that exists to hire a diversity into the company. Now imagine the same conversation. I go back to business and say, hey, you know what? We looked at data over the last 6 months, and the data says the big 5 competency sales index score for a woman has to be 8 points higher than a man for getting the same job that you actually land. Now, do you think that goes better than saying there's a bias that exists? It definitely goes better, right? Ultimately, what happened was in that particular job that I was doing with that company, we moved the percentage of women from 7 to 21%. And 21 as against 11% in the external market. But what I'm trying to bring out here is how data plays an important role. And the next thing is, how do you start to look at data in different pockets and bring it in a cross section that really makes sense and makes a narrative? You know, there are a lot of vanilla recruitment indices that you could look at, right? You know, like speed's a love language of business. Cost is sometimes a love language. Maybe for a product company, we really don't care about cost, but there are a lot of different things that you'll look at, right? What we really coined at Adobe, we look at 2 terms, and I think these are 2 terms which I really love. One is, it's called GDR, which is gross diversity ratio, and NDR, which is net diversity ratio, right? Gross diversity ratio is, for every rec that you're working on, how many women did you bring to the slate? Like how Aakanksha was talking about, you know, your pipe. How many women do you bring to the slate, your hiring slate? That's your gross. And the net is, if you were at 30% gross and your net is 10%, there is a significant shrinkage, right? And when there is a significant shrinkage, you can go back to business and say, it's not that your gross is bad. You're able to get in women into the pipe, but your conversions are significantly low. And then you start to solve for, why do you have conversion losses, right? And then what are these losses? Is that because of a bias? Is that because of something else? But see, the narrative is different. The narrative is data. Right? And I think that is something that I would encourage each one of us to really look at. How is the narrative? How is data? And I'm trying to bring in use cases and trying to make it very, very practical so all of us can really understand how we start to narrate it. Yeah? Thank you.
You've brought a very important and a very pertinent point that I have the next question for Mino. Thank you so much for that. Aakanksha, you tell me that, you know, as the success of any organization depends on its staff, and of course, tech hiring analytics becomes more important. It enables companies to hire suitable candidates conveniently and swiftly, you know, leveraging the data's power, as Mino was speaking. Why do you think it's important for sourcing and recruiters for today?
So I was thinking about this question, and I asked someone, and they said, so we can confuse our stakeholders, you know, and that's what data can help us do. But yeah, coming to, I think, how it really helps. So before that, I think, see, talent acquisition is the most measurable part of the entire HR life cycle, right? Actually, it's the part where I think sales and marketing converges with HR, and, you know, you really, instead of selling a product or a service, you are selling the brand and the role to a candidate at its most transactional level, and the candidate to the hiring manager, right? But we never seem to ask, why is data important for driving sales or marketing or any of these business functions? So why the question for HR in the first place? But again, I think that's more legacy driven. But I think it is changing with time. So see, talent acquisition is a target driven role and completely measurable, more or less. I think, you know, if you look at it across any cross section of it. And if you look at a recruiter, if you come to that little person that you're talking about, and what does that day for a recruiter look like? So what does a typical recruiter do in a day? I think some elements of branding, getting those people at the top, ensuring, we're talking about the brand in a positive light on social and otherwise. Then the entire process from sourcing to offer to joining, and then the whole candidate engagement, which in today's time has attained like absolutely like superlative power. So the candidate engagement from offer to joining, and at the end is data management for a recruiter, right? So either it's through an ATS or it's through an HRIS or just plain old Excel sheets, right? And if you ask these recruiters, right, which is the least favorite part of your job, my hunch is that it'll more often than not be the data entry for each candidate at each stage of the process. And in my limited experience leading a TA team, I think the recruiters absolutely despise this part of their job, right? If they could get away with it, they would. But the few who don't, right? And I think that is a differentiator, at least from a recruitment career point of view. When you start understanding the power of data and what it brings to the table, that's a game changer. And when you move to manager or people manager role, you realize that data and insights from that and subsequent actions is the only impact you have on recruitment, right? I mean, that's the only language you can speak to get work done or to speak to the business, so on and so forth. So whether you're an amateur or a pro, I think there is no doubt about that. And coming a little macro, I think data has pervaded all aspects of our lives, and especially with the pandemic, I think that effect and impact is even more multiplied. The whole digitization journey that the world's taking together. And one data point that I wanted to add here is till 2016-17, India added one unicorn every year, right, to the Indian corporate ecosystem. In the last couple of years, given the the massive way startups have really come up, India got its 100th unicorn this month, right? Which is a total collective valuation of collectively valued at about $300 billion. MMT is a part of that, and I'm sure a lot more. Why am I sharing this? This has brought about in the Indian ecosystem and Indian talent landscape an absolute talent war. The Great Resignation and all of those things that we've read about in like loads, I think has brought about this talent war. And even people on this panel, I think we've been pitted against each other as brands and companies trying to get that a slice of the same pie, right? It's not an infinite talent pool. It is limited. It has its constraints, and we're all fighting for the same people. And I think what is the differentiator? What do you do in this scenario? I think how the data that you have available is the richest source to really mine and get insights and work on it to understand what is it that can differentiate apart from obviously the obvious stuff like the salary and everything else that you're doing, right? So I think that is the importance of it, right? And like, I think I'll just end this part by saying, like Edward Deming said, in God we trust, everyone else must bring data. I think in the newer context, it is data and data alone we trust in, right? Everything else is just a byproduct. So yeah, that's what I think.
I'm so glad. This is just going to be so much more fun to talk to each one of you. The kind of insights that all of you are giving me today, I never thought that data specifically and correlating it with the recruitment can be so much fun. So thank you so much for that, Aakanksha. I'll move to you. We were speaking of the company's success and losses and everything. With every bad hire, the company can face tremendous losses, and all of us, I'm sure, have had an experience sometime, with the company and with the candidate recruitment that we do. However, with analytics, data, and strategies, of course, can be more proactively used in the entire recruitment process. So, how are you using analytics to build a data-driven recruitment strategy?
Is that more connected to in terms of how do you ensure you're hiring right? Is that the question?
Yes.
Or all right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's been a Da Vinci code that's not cracked yet, right? Let me, in all humility, say that. So I'm going to answer this at a philosophical level and at a practical level, right? See, when I hire a great coder into the company, right? At Adobe, we got a concept called grab. Like, I mean, we interview, we get across to a person who is good, but we still wait. We interview more people until we get to a point where, we find somebody who's a grab. Like, it's like, put everything, all hands on the deck, we need that person on board, right? How do we come to a point of knowing that a person is a grab, right? And this might be your 40th interview that you're doing, right? You can imagine the frustration a recruiter is going through because, you've got feedback saying is good, but wait, right? And you've got that feedback like with 10 candidates saying is good, but wait, right? So it's not an easy conversation that happens. At a philosophical level, is there a way when somebody writes a code that I could get the persona of a person, right? For example, through the way I see a person write a code, can I understand how much of a leader is that person? How creative is that person? How customer obsessed is that person? How focused is that person, right? Now, a year back, it was more philosophical, but right now, we are able to understand a few things. For example, if a person is able to write a code thinking about the other person who's going to use the code, right, and write it in such a modular manner that the consumer is able to understand it better, it actually shows a lot in terms of a person's centricity around customer, right? So in that manner, you're able to start to realize a lot of different things about a person's persona, right, through just looking at a code. At a practical level, I'm working with a lot of psychometrics and a lot of companies to help me in terms of just look at a code and help me understand what's the leader coefficient, what's the focus coefficient, what's the creative coefficient, and what's the customer obsession coefficient, right? Because these are very important things for Adobe, right? Ultimately, if I'm able to really get a number down there, I would really be able to know if that person is going to be successful down the line or not, right? But like I said, in all humility, it's a very tough ask really to do it. Another interesting thing that I have seen and we have seen is all of us have certain trajectories, certain career paths, right? Some start with coding, move on to product, move on to something else. Some start with backend, move on to front end, and then move on to maybe product management. We through analytics have seen that a particular way in which a person traverses his or her journey and a particular velocity at which a person traverses a journey might actually be a functional representative of his or her ability to succeed in a role. I don't know if I'm making sense, but what I'm saying is looking at a person's journey and looking at a velocity at which a person has traversed that journey, I could with reasonable predictability predict the person's capability to succeed in a role that I have for him or her, right? So what we do is we have a lot of tools that we use for helping us in terms of understand journey speed, understand journey clock, understand how a person is really traversed. And then we connect that data back to how that person is performing, right? Anyone that we hire from campus, we look at that person's ability to map into things like, being the best young engineer award, etc. Is there a correlation between that? And then based on the correlation, we go back and understand what pockets really work good for us, right? Data is like crazy. And I keep on telling my team, I wake up every morning thinking the possibilities and the limitations, because you have only as much time and energy that you could really put into it. But if you're able to solve one problem at a time, like top of the funnel, your engagement, your attribution, you really are able to ultimately give data back to business saying, hey, you know what, because we looked at this, we got a person on board who's able to start to be productive very quickly and thus help business, right? I hope that really gives some kind of practical examples, right, in terms of how you could really run through in terms of look at these data points. Yeah.
Absolutely, Minu. So, these were the insights in terms of the philosophical aspect as well as the practical aspect that Minu has just shared with us. When it comes to, execution, Subnesh, I would want you to answer this for me. That what tools? Because every company almost is benefiting from the tools that are available in the market these days. So, what tools and technologies are helping you achieve those matrices and maximize your recruitment analytics and ROIs?
Sure. So, primarily we pay attention to open source tool, right? And, we have in-house HRMS, which is highly customized, right? 100% customized. So that gives us flexibility to add on anything which is needed. So be it any sort of metrics which you want to propose for, recruiter efficiency, maybe hiring cost optimization or whatever it is, we have those flexibilities wherein we can easily use technology like Python or Power BI, there are multiple tools which we are using internally to enable such kind of reports, which will allow us to, look at what is happening, where it is happening, where we are like leaking, and how to fix that even. Right. So such reports are being available via help with the use of such tools internally. But yes, if I talk about open in the market, there are thousands of tools, right? I think if you put on the Google what is the best tool for recruitment analytics, you'll get a list of 50 tools top in the market in 2022 or 2021 and so on and so forth, right? And every tool is giving the similar solution or almost a little bit ahead of, because they all are reading each other, right? Honestly, right? So at the end of the day, you see your customer. Who is your customer? Your customer is the one person who's a recruiter, right? What he wants to achieve, he wants to achieve a hiring number. That's it. He doesn't want anything else. Now, how you enable him to achieve it, that's where the journey starts, right? And how are you going to shorten his application to offer ratio? That's where he would like to engage these tools, right? So on the ground reality is, if you pay attention to customer, if you pay attention to sales, if you pay attention to something, I think there are certain organizations which are paying attention to recruiters also, and that's where data analytics came into place. And then you have I think your company is also doing the same thing. Don't take me otherwise, right? But yeah, that's the reality, isn't it? Right. But one important thing, I think Mino was mentioning it, and I think in Adobe they are practicing it, which is sentimental analysis, right? This is also crucial when it comes to recruitment. Bad hire cost, Sukriti, you were asking, bad hire cost is impacting the business at times, right? And it is at times more than what you were offering to the person who has exited, and you took this person plus so and so forth cost. So in certain scenarios, for certain hierarchy positions, it is important that you should always do, or prefer to do, not always, but prefer to do sentimental analysis. Now, there are certain psychometric tools available free of cost. You can use it, or otherwise you can customize also. There are coaches, psychometric coaches who can come and support you. But yeah, important factor will be for a recruiter that hiring should happen, right? And if my tool is having option to enable sentimental analysis, what this candidate is doing in his free time, example I'm taking, right? Or how much time this person is investing on LinkedIn or social media for that matter. There are certain tools which gathers this information and populates, okay, effective time of working is this, and this is the time where person is engaged on the social media, right? There are multiple tools available now. Or what comment he is putting in the internal portal or maybe external portal, how the analysis is happening, what he talks about his reporting manager, example I'm taking, what he is talking about, organization out in the market, so and so forth, will give you a perspective whether this person is going to be good hire or not. That also come into data and analytics, right? Typically, person who should be at a decision-making position, we should prefer to do sentimental analysis, right? Psychometric tools are available in the market. You can engage them. I heard about a couple of tools like Tableau is being used, OpenCTS, this there. iRecruit is something which people are talking about. These are open source tools, right? You can integrate in your HRMS and you can leverage that to an extent wherein you may would like to achieve the customization also. Yeah.
Subnesh, one thing that I take back from what you spoke is also the aspect about ultimately your talent partner is your customer, right? I think for me, I think because the business orientation has always been business, right? And when we sit down on panels just to think about, I mean, especially at work, to think about, hey, what do we do? What do we do? The last discussion was, how do you really make your talent partner's life easy? But it never came to the point of looking at a talent partner as a customer, right? But I think that was a very, very good way of coining it, and I think that's something that I really take back in terms of just looking at, what talent partner is your customer, and how are you really make easier his or her life to just kind of get things going.
I agree.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so we spoke of the tools and methodologies that all of us are working upon and trying to execute the recruitment process in all possible manners. One thing that I would want to know from each one of you is that, how do you analyze the matrices or the KPIs that should be used to gauge the person or the recruiter's efficacy? So let's begin with you, Mino.
How do you measure what? Recruiters?
Efficacy. So these are the factors that, of course, you should consider. So as an expert here, what would you recommend?
I think you should start with Subnesh, because he really looked at the talent partner being right at the center as a customer. I think he might have the right to just chime in with a few others. Yeah.
Subnesh, please feel free.
I have seen, because this journey I enjoyed a lot, right? As a recruiter also, I enjoyed a lot. So since I experienced it, I know what happens to the person, right? Since the day start when you have a scrum wherein you realize, okay, boss, I need to work on these number of positions which you need to close, and P1 priority is these many, P2 priority is these many, and then this person is already in pressure, right? But then recruiter are the front face of the company, right? They're the first one who interact with the candidate. So till the time they're not having pleasing smile and that sweetness in their tone, candidate will not be attracted. On the ground reality is this person is highly under pressure, right? That's how the situation is. Now, on top of it, what we want is we want him to improve on his performance, because offers are not being rolled out. Now, why it is not being rolled out, you need to understand that. So if we go back to the early stage, first important thing, business is giving a single line statement by saying, I need to hire one person with this role, over and out. Now this person is in a dilemma, what I'm supposed to do as a recruiter, right? So you need to understand from business what exactly the need is. Is it like you're looking for a mid-level person, you're looking for a junior level person, you're looking for a senior level person? On top of it, what skill set, what competency, entire JD at times is missing. Now, if we talk about his efficacy, right? How this person is going to give you the result when he doesn't have any clarity. So first and foremost important thing is that this person should be equipped with enough information, right? To start searching, start hunting. It is important that you should have all the armors first in place. Otherwise, you will not be able to do it. You're not justifying your job also, right? So be it even effective hiring, you call it what do you call it? I forgot the name. So it's like application to offer rate. People tend to ask, okay, what is your, even in an interview also, people usually ask, what is your conversion ratio? Now, conversion, how can I decide? How can I decide it? So there are certain tools which are enabling you to just see the number. Out of 10, 5 are achieved, but how? Why I missed 5? Is there any behavioral issue from the candidate side? Is there rejection from the panel 1, panel 2, panel 3 side, or the number of iterations which are happening? So each and every level we need to understand what are the challenges they are facing, and we need to fix those challenges. Then we should identify how these data analytics is going to support them to enable to become a good recruiter. As a human, they are good, but how this data is going to enable. So for example, let me give you a very small scenario. We are expecting 30 offers to be rolled out from a recruiter in 30 days. This is the current situation in the market, right? 30 should go, daily one offer should go. Now, does this mean that you are going to invite a quality? Answer is no. When the daily offer is going to release, then believe me, the quality is going to be compromised. What if you would have said, okay, you release number of offers, absolutely okay, but all should be quality. People should stick to the company. They should be highly aligned with the core values of the organization. They should have a long-term vision with the organization. The result will be different. Now, on the second time, the person is going to take his personal interest, will see all the parameters, whether what is the journey of this person. I think, you absolutely make sense, right? What is the journey of this person? How long he stayed in the previous organization? What was the exit reason? What the genuine reason? And how interview level one has gone? What is the feedback? What is the feedback return? Analyze and depicted. And what is the level 2? What is the level 3? And in the last, it is going to be HR on what is my perception about this person. Should I onboard? Should I not onboard? If you give that much of flexibility, and data is going to show you clearly, boss, level 1 is saying this, level 2, level 3, and this is the combination. I think it's a good match or it's not a good match. Believe me, this person is going to be more productive, right? We are talking about their performance, but we are not enabling them to get their performance back on the track. That's where the challenge comes.
Yeah, I mean, just thanks for that. I think it's a lot of things. Recruiters generally spend, when you look at the market, right? I mean, the market follows a particular pattern that is integration N is equal to 1, R is equal to G, right? Which means every one is unique, right? It's a long niche tail of people in the market, right? And R is equal to G is your approach to every one in the market has to be extremely niche, right? Now, in a market like that, a recruiter can't really sit down figuring out, hey, what excites Aakanksha, what excites Subnesh? How do I coin my messaging to an Aakanksha, to a Mino, to a Subnesh, right? How do I start to make those conversations more intentful so the person is really intrigued to make conversation with me, right? Sourcing is not tough because you could really hit in somewhere and get profiles. But after you get a profile, to really make a conversation, I mean, it's like, you go, if you're going out on a date, if you really know how to really make that right conversation with the other person, you really know how to really take it ahead, right? Pretty much like that for a talent partner. If you really help the talent partner make that right conversation to the candidate, it really helps, right? That really gives a lot of time to the talent partner, and hence the efficiencies and their productivity increases as well. What we do at Adobe is we use a tool that's an in-house tool called Adobe Campaign Manager, right? And we send across messaging to like maybe thousands of people, and then the campaign manager comes back to us saying, out of the 1,000, these many people have responded at this particular time, these many people have opened this particular link, these many people have this particular click-through rate for this particular content, right? And the content that we send is very, very thoughtfully prepared. So we have content around CSR, we have content around business, we have content around tech, and we look at what are people clicking and where are they spending more time. Now, if I know that Aakanksha has got a bend towards CSR, right, and she is actually spending a lot more time on CSR related content that I've actually kind of sent across to her, and if I know exactly when, which part of the day and what time she really kind of spends time there, the next time I send a mail to her or a blast to her, it's going to be a blast around CSR. It's going to be at that particular day, at that particular time, right? So I know the chances for her to really open and warm up to a lot more about Adobe is much more higher, right? Now, what it does is the recruiter doesn't have to break his or her head around, understanding what I do, what should I do, how should I do, but the tool itself would tell you what to do, how to do, and make a conversation. And now the recruiter would go to Aakanksha saying, hey, Aakanksha, I see that you have a great interest in terms of CSR that we do, right? Would it be great to just kind of let you know a little bit about tech that we do, and also spend a little bit about CSR and know from you as to what are things that you are thinking, right? Now the conversation is a little more intricate, the conversation is a little more forward-looking, the conversation would really start to get her attention as well, right? So there are a lot of tools that you could, and I've called out an in-house tool that we have, but there are a lot of tools that you could really use for making these conversations and get a person's stickiness around engagement. Because in this present market, every good candidate has 3 or 4 offers, right? And if you're able to really make conversations that matter, it really helps in terms of just the productivity of a recruiter, right? So I just want to kind of give that example. Over to you, Aakanksha, if you want to add something to it.
No, I think we know that especially the conversation bit is something that honestly I haven't even thought of in a measurable manner. So yeah, great thought starter there for me for sure. So I think just to add to what Subnesh and Mino have outlined, for a recruiter, we need to identify and classify what is controllable and what is non-controllable in terms of, you know, the factors out there which are impacting the recruiter's performance and output. And you know, for the longest time, I think we've measured recruiters' performances on, you know, time to fill, number of joiners, etc., quality of hire to some extent, etc. And in the recent times, when you know what Mino pointed out, that every candidate in tech at least has a minimum of 3 to 4 offers out there. What is it that we are tracking for recruiters' performance? So I think offers are like top line, and joiners are like bottom line, right? At the end of it, I can get the person to the offer stage, and I can give out an offer, which is the easiest thing to do in today's scenario, honestly, right? But that journey from there to joining is, you know, where it's a flurry of, you know, macro and what the recruiter actions are in candidate engagement and a lot of stuff there. So I think, you know, we need to, apart from the what, a lot of it is driven by how. So when I can't get only output metrics to measure the recruiter, I will also look at what input is the recruiter going, you know, going in with, and the conversations is one input metric for that, you know, in that case. Apart from that, you know, even looking at whether the recruiter is using their own knowledge of or insights of what they've done in the past, right? If they work across 5 sources, you know, and some sources have a higher conversion versus the others, are they using that intelligence to really channelize their efforts? So the input metrics and how they're channelizing that effort, which gets it to the top line, is the first part of how I measure and what we measure. And then the next part is between the top and the bottom, you know, which is the offer and the joiner. What is it that I'm doing which is in my control? If all of those boxes are ticked, I think the recruiter is pretty much doing their job.
Lovely. I'm sure, you know, the kind of insights that all 3 of you have shared with me, I have a lot to, you know, reflect back and to see that, you know, how things are working when it comes to data in the recruitment space. I'll quickly see if we have any questions from the audience. Okay. All right. So I have a question from Indira. She said it was a very useful discussion on data analytics on tech hiring. In today's market, there are a lot of declines and candidates have multiple offers. In fact, they are hiring us and of course not we. So how do we minimize the decline ratio with data analysis? Is there any possibility? Okay.
Possibilities are there. Over to you, Aakanksha.
Subnesh, go ahead. No, Subnesh, please go ahead.
Okay, so see, possibilities are there. Declining, ultimately what is happening, right? Entire data is coming to you somewhere in the form of tool, right? And candidate who are declining, there can be possible reason registered. Most of the time, I don't know, you know, maybe others can also comment on it. Most of the time, those reasons are not the real reasons, right? And you can reflect upon after a few days, right? If you go instantly, they will simply say, oh, I have a better opportunity. You don't know that is the real reason or not. It's similar to attrition, similar to exit case, honestly, right? So if you really wish to reduce it, first you need to find out the quality of the candidate. Are you picking the quality of the candidate, which is meeting your skill expectations? If it is there is a most likely they are going to go ahead with you. Second thing is, which is very, very crucial, I think, you know, you touched that point, but yes, I would still say yes, somewhere recruiter is responsible to present your company. They have to talk about it, they have to sell that company to candidate. I agree that 100% with the same 100% energy it's not possible, but yeah, if you're talking to a candidate and if you're not able to convince, the decline happens on the first interaction itself. The rest is just a process which people do follow, right? Over to you, Aakanksha, if you'd like to add on something.
No, so I think again it's a puzzle which I think most of the industry is trying to solve. that how do you really down the decline ratio, which has literally, at least for us, has doubled since the pandemic began, and especially I think the last 1 year. So again, no solutions, but something that we are trying to do a couple of things. Apart from all the other engagement initiatives that we take up in this period, I think just regular connect and pulse check is the most basic brass tack activity, which I think has helped us. And we've actually engaged an extra person who just does this day in and day out, right? So just understanding from how the experience has been from the start till the offer stage, and whether that's gone seamlessly, if there are any issues there. And then regularly, given the notice period, I think you connect till the person joins. And in terms of probability, the shorter the notice period, the higher the probability of joining. And I think the other metric that we've seen working or not working, or we observed when the probability of higher joining is higher, is if you're not the first offer of the candidate. So if you are intermediate offer of the candidate, I think the probability increases by at least 20 to 30%. So, yeah.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Look, I'm into some different kind of situation, right? So one of my line of business is not having this problem, right? Honestly, decline ratio is very low, but in another line of business, it's very high, right? Probably whatever we are discussing, right? The people are having 3 or 4 or 5 offers right in hand, and they tend to make decision just before the joining date. Should I really go for it? Right. So I'm facing a little different kind of challenge. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out how to resolve it. But yeah, this is how the situation is.
Yeah, I think another thing is obviously like what Subnesh said in terms of a recruiter speaking passionately about the job, business speaking passionately about the job and passionately about the company. I think we got to work a lot around the brand of our company as well, because ultimately anyone who joins comp is important, but he or she also looks at what's a brand pull, right? And also looks a lot in terms of going to Glassdoor, going into Blind, going to different places and reading about what the company is. So I think, if we could collectively also bring in marketing organization to really look at how do you market your company, how do you position your purpose? After the COVID, after the pandemic, one thing that I have seen very strongly emerge is people connecting to purposes. Right, and my purpose is to give this particular thing. My purpose is to work in this particular theater. If you're able to connect that purpose to what you're offering, the chances for you to really convert that person is much more higher, right? So, yeah. Those kind of loosely hanging things, if you could start to bring a little bit more, it really helps. Like during the pandemic, I still remember, mentoring certain startups. Healthcare and educational startups were finding it really easy to attract talent, right? Because that whole sentiment was towards, how do I contribute to healthcare? How do I do my part in terms of serving the community through healthcare? Education is something that people are generally very passionate about, but how do you connect your company's purpose at, say, a MakeMyTrip to a purpose for a retail candidate, right? I think that really connects. For example, at Adobe, we say everyone has a story. We are here to democratize storytelling. And when you join us, you're going to help 7 billion speak a story with passion, with grace, with intent. Do you want to be a part of that? Right. So if you're able to get your purpose very clearly spoken about, it really starts to connect. Even during the highest peak of a pandemic in terms of whatever it is, our decline rates have been pretty much okay. Like Aakanksha said, it's certainly 1.5 times, 1.6 times the pre-pandemic, but manageable rates, right? So I think that's a good thing. The other thing, if you could afford to do, is just pay it off the roof and get the person on, right? So if you could do that.
Yeah, that works. 100%.
Works. Absolutely, that works. Yeah.
Yeah. So Indra, we have a solution given by these experts today. You can look at the possibility that they are actually explaining. Thank you so much for that. And this calls for a wrap. But before that, I would like to thank each one of you. Thank you, Aakanksha. Thank you, Mino. Thank you, Subnesh, for being a part of this wonderful discussion. I had a great time conversating with each one of you, and the kind of insights that you have shared, I think it's going to help me study the market in a better manner. I would definitely get back and observe those little insights that I might have just missed in the conversation that we had. So thank you so much for that. Please go ahead and give me your closing remark. Let's start with you, Subnesh.
Yeah. So I think that the conversation went really well, and there was a great learning from both of you, Aakanksha and Mino. Right. I have my pointers which I jotted down. Right. So I really liked what you initially mentioned, GDR and NDR. Right. I remember that. You mentioned both the things. I think something I need to do there as well. Right. It's not typically those words which are being followed, but yeah, we are paying attention there. I would like to share that in my manufacturing side, I have 70% of the women workforce who are working, right? It is something which we are doing only for women empowerment initiative under women empowerment initiative, right? That's we are doing. But yeah, this GDR, NDR, I need to bring into engineering side and sales side for sure, right? So I have my takeaways from both of you. Thank you so much. Really nice having good interaction with all here, even audience. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Subnesh. Mino, go ahead.
Thanks, Sukriti, for moderating it. And Aakanksha and Subnesh, like I said, I was looking forward to being a part of this to learn from both of you. I really like what you spoke, and it kind of resonates a lot. I think I'm going to take back a lot of things. And like I said, I mean, the talent partner as a customer is a paradigm that I think I want to drive as well in terms of just running through with that, right? Aakanksha, I really like the way you kind of brought in a lot of elements around different stages and how you have to look at different stages and bring in data, and I think that's the way to do it, right? And I hope that a lot of companies move from just systems of records or no records to autonomy. I think as leaders down the line, if we don't really have business having autonomy to do things, I think we have failed at a job, right? So our job's not going to be transactions or enabling transactions, but enabling the architecture that gives data, enabling the architecture that makes things happen, right? So looking forward to that. But thanks again for having me on this, Sukriti, and each one of you. Yeah, humbled. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aakanksha.
Yes, thank you, Sukriti, first of all, for the opportunity to be here. And yeah, I'm so glad to have had Mino and Subnesh as co-panelists. Definitely learned a lot, have my notes as well. And I think what I take back of the conversation is, given that I've spent the last 5-6 months in the role, in this version of the role, I think I've been looking at things in a more micro manner and more, on an everyday basis. What am I doing to drive my team efficiency and really get those numbers going? And what this conversation's brought me has done for me is taking a step back and looking at it more holistically at an organization level, and what are the other levers I can impact, be it in terms of stakeholders, be it in terms of the brand, the good versus grab, the conversations. So I think all of that has gotten a lot of thoughts flowing for me. So yeah, thank you so much. I think I'm grateful to be here.
Yeah, I think Mino has given us a good understanding on philosophy and physics both, right? I remember that example of velocity, but I'm going to incorporate that also in my fast track.
All his book readings are coming into use here in the conversation that we spoke, Subnesh, isn't it? So thank you so much for that. I had a wonderful time, in this during this conversation, and this calls for a wrap, of course. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. I had to gratitude to our eminent panelists for sharing their knowledge and experience with us when it comes to data analysis and recruitment. Audience, thank you for listening to us. In case you're looking for hiring tech talent from campuses or even otherwise, SpeedHire is one-stop shop for it. Please check out the link in the video. This is your host signing off. Thank you so much once again. Please stay safe and take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.